What's up, world? You are in tune to the Marvelous Podcast, and we are at it again. Your favorite men, your boys. What's up? We got Dame. Dame, what's popping, man?
What's going on, my marvelous people?
Yeah, and of course, always, we got our resident comic book head, Big G. What's up, Big G?
BG.
What's up, Marvelous Talk? Good evening and good to see y'all. Let's do this thing.
And of course, it's me, your main man, Mod, man. And look, we got a lot of news to get into, man. A lot of things that we want to talk about in this dispensation of Marvel talk. Man, listen, man. The president of Sony. So first and foremost, all of you guys out there in Marvel land and Marvelous Talk land, I want you to understand the relationship that Sony has with Spider-Man, right? I know it seems kind of complicated, but let's think of it as, well, I'll take it from, I'm a music guy, so I'll take it from a music perspective. Sony owns the IP of Spider-Man, right? So it's like Sony created a track and Marvel is leasing that track, basically. So you can use it all you want, but at some point, we're going to get the rights to it back. So at this point, what we're looking at out there in TV land is a shared thing, a balancing act with Spider-Man. Why is this important? Well, because of the simple fact that if you see, Sony has got a whole bunch of movies that are coming out, which Spider-Man should be inside of. Mm-hmm. You look at Venom. Venom Spider-Man should be there. You look at Morbius. Morbius is coming up. Spider-Man should be there, right? Because these are Spider-Man's enemies. They have to be there, right? And so we have this whole thing with Marvel, who we have Spider-Man No Way Home now. And Spider-Man with No Way Home, it's still our version of Marvel. Does that make sense, you guys?
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a shared property. It's a shared property. To me, as they're going forward with this, both of them are benefiting. So that's why you see it consistently happening, because Marvel's benefiting from it, because we finally see a Marvel accurately rendition version of Spider-Man. Yeah. At the same time, like you mentioned, Ahmad, because Sony still owns that property, they're benefiting too. So the question is, how long are they going to continue to have this collaboration and keep it moving? Now, you preface that Sony is making all these villain movies because the bottom line is they know that the momentum for Spider-Man is there.
Right.
But for us as the fans, it looks weird because, I mean, you're creating all these villain movies, but we don't want to really see just the villain. We want to see Spider-Man intervening and coming in there and whipping their behind. You know what I'm saying? So how long can they keep this up without interjecting Spider-Man into the Sony properties that come out? So that's the big question.
And Dame, really to be something else too, is that I looked at a different angle of what's driving this too. Merchandise sales, man.
Absolutely.
It's like huge.
Yep.
Like Marvel makes a killing. Like if Spider-Man shows up, whether he shows up or Sony or Disney Plus or whatever, when they put out a show and they start tying merchandise to it, the Marvel people are eating. I mean, they're making big money off of that merch.
Absolutely.
So that's just to like piggyback off of what you were saying, man. Because how much longer is that wedding going to work? Because we're talking about almost $1 billion industry. When you start talking about Spider-Man and Spider-Man merchandise, it's almost $1 billion. So how much longer are they going to share?
I mean, you got this poster behind me with the Miles Morales Spider-Man that came out on PlayStation 5 exclusively on PlayStation 5. And Cash was buying the PlayStation just to play that game.
For it.
Yeah.
So, but see, now we're getting into another whole page of that, because Marvel owns Miles Morales, right? They don't share Miles Morales with Sony. So being that may be the case, there's a lot of possibilities that you can see happening in the Marvel universe. Could we just, drop the Peter Parker version of Spider-Man? Could this be the end of the Spider-Man that we know, and we're building into going ahead and taking Miles Morales as our Spider-Man in this universe?
I can tell you one thing, from all the chatter that I've seen, people are ready for that live Miles Morales character. I mean,
I think so too.
The Into the SpiderVerse, and I know they're working on another animated one. Those were great, and I know the second one's gonna be great. But man, we ready to see flesh and blood Miles.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
The issue has been too, man. They Sony, because of whatever reason, they sort of killed the Spider-Man character. You know, how many, every time you reboot a character, you take a little bit off of it unless you come hard with a serious script. Yeah, so, how many times they have rebooted this guy so many times, it's ridiculous. Right. So that's why
within a decade, they made, and it did, dude, I totally agree with what you just said, G. Yeah. Because when that's set, now I ain't knocking Andrew Garfield. You know, he added his element to it. But when they made those second two Amazing Spider-Man movies, I was still like, what possessed them to think that they needed to do this? That was and that made it any better than the Tobey Maguire ones. I never understood that.
They could have just slid the character. They could have took the, if they wanted to kill the contract with Tobey Maguire, that's cool. But they could have put Garfield right in that same line. Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, I get it too, because how Mod started the conversation. We start talking about IP addresses, who owns what and how. Well, in the comic book, there's like 15 different runs of Spider-Man. There's the Spectacular, there's the Amazing, so I could run down the laundry list of Spider-Man comics. So are they doing that to try to run up all the IP addresses so they own everything? So that way Marvel can't backdoor and own them? So I don't know. It's a lot of little shady stuff, fellas, that, I just...
And just so you know, Big G knows what he's talking about. It's not IP addresses. It's intellectual property. We know. He's just talking. He's had a lot going on this weekend. Yeah. So, we're going to charge that to his head and not his heart. But listen, so here's the thing that really begins to start going a little further in this whole thing. The president of Sony comes out in Variety magazine and says, hey, we're excited about the new Spider-Man Long Way From Home, right? Or No Way Home. Is it No Way Home?
No Way Home.
We're excited about Spider-Man No Way Home. And then he uses the language SpiderVerse, right? Okay. So us as Marvel just heads, we've been into, the Marvel world. We all know that you don't just use, the language that you use kind of tells off on yourself. So now this to me is kind of like the first real tangible thing that we know that we're getting a multiverse in Spider-Man No Way Home. We're getting a multiverse. We're getting that. And we're probably going to end up seeing Garfield. We're probably going to end up seeing Maguire, which, by the way, like I said, Dane made a great point. But, I'm going to tell you the truth. And G made the point too. If you're killing these Spider-Mans and you're trying to go in different directions, Amazing Spider-Man and this other Spider-Man, if you're trying to do that, that's great. Problem with this whole thing is that when you're talking about a superhero that has an alter ego, they're only as good as the character's alter ego. If Peter Parker's not good, Spider-Man's not. You could be a great Spider-Man, but if you're not a great Peter Parker, it's no need in doing it. And if with Garfield and with Maguire, they were both raggedy Peter Parkers. But Tom Holland has been the best mix of Spider-Man and Peter Parkers that you could ever want. You got the Kid Wonder, the Kid Genius, and you also have the braggadocious, smart aleck Spider-Man that we're all used to. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he's a New Yorker. That's who Spider-Man is. So,
now getting back to what you was talking about earlier with the new movies that's coming out. This I don't know about y'all, but this Venom 2, dude, I was like, it didn't do nothing for me. I mean, I'm not excited like, I can't wait to go see Venom 2. It just did not like it didn't do anything for me, man. And they've been promoting Morbius like forever. and we don't even know a release date, I don't think, on Morbius yet.
We don't, but
it ties back to what we're saying all along. The reason why we can't buy into the characters is because we don't see Spider-Man in the movies. Mm-hmm. If Spider-Man was in the movies and we saw live action where we saw Spider-Man fighting Carnage and Spider-Man fighting Venom and Spider-Man swooping in to rescue somebody from dealing with Morbius, or even if we saw Blade, if Blade was to drop off into Morbius, half of the people that are big time Marvel fans would just watch it just to see the scene with Morbius and Blade, or even Punisher. If Punisher would show up with Morbius, we would watch it. But because you don't have, they're not building the Sonyverse like we have the build-in for the MCU, if that makes sense.
And then last week, just to throw, I don't know if y'all saw this, but they just introduced Aaron Taylor. I can't think
Craven, which is where we're going. We're going to that next. So you got all of these villains, right? And Big G talks about this too. The Sinister Six. So you're gonna have a Sinister Six in Sony and another Sinister Six in Marvel. You've got to have a way, and this is what the president was saying. You got to have a way that you're bringing in the main character, which is Spider-Man. You can't bring their villains in without bringing the main character that they fight in. It won't happen. So, like I said, you brought in this guy who's playing Craven, and then on top of that, and he played Quicksilver, by the way. So this was Quicksilver in the MCU, who's now Craven the Hunter in Sony. So it doesn't make sense unless you have a plan that will allow you to use Tom Holland's character. Because get this, if you kill Tom Holland's character off, now what G was talking about with marketability and the toys and all of that dies, right? So you want to keep the money. If you're trying to keep the money, you got to keep the character. So if you're going to keep the character, now we've got to write in these scripts to where they combine and they overlapped each other. And here's the last point on what I was saying. He also said that him and Kevin have an excellent working relationship. And moving forward, there's going to be some things that in the SpiderVerse that are going to be nice and that work together and that mesh together. So, I mean, he kind of gave away a lot. He gave away a lot in this interview. And then Alfred Molina went on to say that they de-aged his face. Everybody know who Alfred Molina is. He's Doc Ock. They de-aged his face to be able to have him in Spider-Man No Way Home. So definitely, I think that's what they're about to start doing. They're trying to wrap these universes up.
You know what, Ma? You know what just don't make sense, man? And to me, it doesn't. Is that the issue is that Anthony Stark, Tony Stark's character, was the centerpiece of phase 1 through 3. And then the whole thing, for all of us that watch the behind the scenes, listen to all this stuff off camera, read all the Reddits and the other shows that are out there. What we were basically told was that Spider-Man was going to get the baton passed from him, from Tony Stark, to be the centerpiece of the MCU moving forward. I don't believe it. I don't buy into it anymore. I think that one of these characters is going to be the main person that's going to hold the Avengers together, that's going to get them to come back together. And I don't know who it is yet. I don't know. Anthony Mackie did one hell of a job with becoming the new Cap, but I don't know yet, man. If I don't know who's the guy. Tony Stark's character, Robert Downey Jr. held it down, man, for 10 years, man. And like now we're like in this limbo, and I know it was supposed to be Tom Holland to do the Spider-Man piece, but I don't know, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think, man, honestly, I think the person that they really was going to use G was Chadwick, but I think that was where it was actually going to be headed. You know.
Yeah.
It could be Mackie. Could be Mackie, man. I mean, he, like you said, that Captain America and Winter Soldier, man, that was a great series. I don't care what some people had issues with it, but I thought it was excellent. And who's to say what's going to spill over into the Captain America 4 movie that they make? But
don't know. But then the next movie that we're talking about, The Eternals. I mean, so the Eternals trailer has went just bonkers and bananas. And
77 million in 24 hours, man. 77 million views in 24 hours. About some people that half the folks don't have no clue who they
idea.
Yeah. I mean, what else? Go ahead, Mom. But what else can you say?
When you're hungry,
hey man, people Marvel hungry, man.
Yeah, that when you're hungry for Marvel content, this is what happens. You know, I mean, and they understand that. Marvel, this is a great problem to have for Marvel, you know, at this point, is to be able to have people hungry for the content, and they got content to burn. They're sitting on content right now.
It's been sitting and just marinating.
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell y'all, brothers. I'm gonna tell y'all. I went to the movies today for the first time since the pandemic. Me and my wife went to go see Quiet Place. We liked the first one, so she definitely wanted to see the second one. And then just sitting in that environment, the first thing came to my mind was Black Widow in July. I mean, we opening back up, and I know people they hungry to experience that, you know, being in the movie theater again, man. So it was a great experience. I felt safe. I didn't have a whole bunch of people around me. So I know as we're phasing back in, that's something that Marvel, they just gonna throw that hook, and people are gonna want that experience of being able to be there in the big screen watching it. So
I mean, I get it. So, you know, 77 million people watching the Thanos trailer. I mean, excuse me, the Eternals trailer. But here's where I'm going. I'm driving down this road. We're gonna see, I guarantee you, you're gonna see a young Thanos in this movie. And people ask me, well, why do you think that we're gonna see a young Thanos in this movie? Well, let me remind you of something, you guys. Let me just remind you. Thanos, son of Eros, Gamora, daughter of Thanos. Okay, so you say, Mod, what is that? Why are you bringing that whole thing up? Well, you know, Red Skull, he knows everything. He's cursed with knowledge, is what he said. Cursed with knowledge. He said Thanos, son of, and let me get this right, Lars, right?
Yep.
So Thanos is son of Lars. Well, guess what? Lars is from this place that y'all guys might know. Place is called Earth, right?
Yeah.
Lars is the first pure Eternal that was mentioned in the movies. So if they're dropping so many hints, you know, to kind of show us, and they're tying everything together. So yeah, I guarantee you see a young Thanos. See, Lars was a scientist on Titan. So which would explain why your Mad Titan was all, you know, crazy with this theory that I'm gonna save Titan and the universe by killing half of the folks on it, because, you know, literally too many people, right? So you can see Thanos starting off in the ways of his father, but then somehow, because he has this deviant gene, like Big G told you, this deviant gene that makes him look crazy and act crazy at the same time. See, my grandmama would call it mannish name. That's what my grandmama would call it. My grandmama would call it a mannish gene. You know, Thanos got a mannish gene, just mannish. You know what I'm saying? Get somewhere and sit down.
So I got a theory, man. I got a theory that I've been sitting on, a bunch of theories I've been sitting on. But I think that Thanos' thing was not even so much about humanity or all the people. I think Thanos was trying to wipe out Celestials, man. And I think he was trying to off out half the Celestials, because Titan was jacked up. You know, we saw that in Infinity War. And we don't know what happened and how Titan got jacked up. And if Titan was a planet that was filled up with Eternals, what in the world caused that civilization to be totally gone? Was it? I don't think it was because they was overpopulated. I think something happened. I might be wrong, but I think something happened, man. And it might have been like, because the Celestials do them host things where they come back to the planet and they checking it out. And I don't know. I might be wrong. I might be wrong. But I think Thanos was trying to wipe out way more than just Kree and Skrulls and humans and Groots, and he was trying to wipe out a whole bunch of people, man. And a whole bunch of beings. Mm-hmm. So I might be, or he wanted enough power to take on a celestial head up. He wanted to have enough power to take on one head up, because there's no way. There's no way.
Well, when you think about it, man, you're hitting on a lot. You're definitely hitting on a lot, and I'm just saying, in the Eternals movie, you guys, don't be surprised if you see a young Thanos, in there trying to work his magic as a scientist to follow in his footsteps.
Speaking of Thanos, hey, Big G, let me ask you something, man, because you're probably familiar with this element. I just found out about it, but I read an article because I always was wondering in Endgame, you got Thanos fighting with that double-bladed big old sword thing that he had, and he's chopping the vibranium shield to pieces. Yeah. And they said that I read what it said that sword was made out of Darganite or something like that. Yeah. Which is apparently more powerful than vibranium.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Darganite is from the planet Carbon, right? Carbon is for y'all to follow Thor, there's multiple different Thors, and so there's this Thor, this Darganite, this is genetically modified Darganite, and that's the guy that actually has Stormbreaker, like in the comic books. So that's what that sword was made out of. So listen to this. When you saw the scene in Endgame where they did the rewind, and you saw where Gamora and it was fighting those creatures, those were Carbonites. Those were actual people that the guy, the Thor, gets, and he's on this big huge ship, and then he has to take his people, and he's trying to protect his people. That's what that material was made out of, man. That's why he conquered that world, because he wanted that material to be able to fight. Wow. So it's a whole lot of backdrop with that, man.
Well, I know one person, that's why we call him the Mad Titan. You know what I mean?
One person that got with the Mad Titan was Scarlet Witch, boy. That Darganite didn't stop her from kicking his
didn't stop her at all. Didn't stop her at all. And I mean, so you think about this, and you really just begin to think about. It's funny that you bring that up, and this is kind of a sidebar, but had Black Panther been available and around at this party where he was trying to lift Mjolnir, I just want you to know that Black Panther would have been able to lift it. Not just because he was worthy. He was worthy, right? But what people don't know about Black Panther is when you become Black Panther, and we showed it in the movie, you get all of the knowledge of your ancestors.
Right.
And there is a comic book iteration where Black Panther has Mjolnir. And it's his old friend. He fought with it. It's actually the very ancient Black Panther that had Mjolnir. So one of those things, just a little tidbit, throw it out here. You get some good stuff on Marvelous Talk. You always gonna get some good stuff. I mean, Dane brought that up about the metal with Thanos' weapon. I think that's awesome. And the other thing you need to learn about when we're talking about Endgame and we're talking about those snaps in the Eternals, right? One of the premises, and this is something that we got to give it up to Big G. Big G has been on it. These last two things we're going to talk about, Big G has kind of hit them right on the head, on the nail. So before we even started talking of the Eternals, Big G was talking about the snaps that happened on Earth. Now you got to think about the snaps. We have 4 snaps, right? First snap was Thanos when he snapped everybody out. It's the first snap. The second snap was the Hulk snapping everybody back.
Yeah.
The third snap. Wait a minute, is that right? Let's see.
No. You had the first snap with Thor. Keep going. Yeah, you go. I mean, with Thanos. Go ahead.
First snap with Thanos. Second snap was with the Hulk.
Third one was Tony Stark.
Third one was Tony. So
no, y'all. There's four.
What's the fourth one?
Oh, okay, listen. You had the original snap.
We know he snapped to get rid of the stones, but that wasn't on Earth.
Right, but it doesn't matter. It's cosmic because how. So you had the original snap with original snap was Thanos. Then you had the second snap that he did on the garden, where he snapped away the stones. He reduced them to rubble. Right. The third snap was the Incredible Hulk, where he snapped everybody that had been taken out by Thanos back. And the fourth snap was when Stark eliminated anybody that was tied to Thanos.
Absolutely.
Right.
Except for Gamora. She survived. Everybody else with Thanos, they up out of there, man.
Right. So you got to think about this. Now we're talking Eternals. The Eternals, something happened, and we're probably going to see what happened in the movie. And Big G said this last week when he was talking about Sprite, because Sprite has the ability to kind of wipe people's minds. And we're thinking that they were all living regular lives until these snaps happened, right? Yeah. And but G was talking about the snap waking up the mutant gene. This is what Big G was talking about, waking up the mutant gene. Now, it's funny how the Eternals are they're experiments of the Celestials.
Correct.
But mutants, that mutant gene was an experiment of the Eternals. So now you're introducing, this is how this gets kind of weird, and it starts to come into a place to where it's tying things in. You're like, wait a minute. So now the Eternals, you can now look to see the mutant gene talked about inside of the Eternals. We don't have one mutant yet, but we're about to have a mutant. What you guys think about that, Dane? What do you think about that?
Hey, man. I mean, we already had established that the Eternals is going to be groundbreaking in a lot of the stuff. And like what G said, it's a resetting. It's a reset. I think the Eternals movie is going to be like our elementary primer in Marvel.
Yep.
It's going to take us to school. It's going to take us to school, man, on a lot of stuff. And that whole issue that you brought up with Sprite and the power that she has of erasing memories, if you look at that trailer, that makes a lot of sense because it looks like, from what I've seen, the little scenes of cut scenes of her, it looks like somebody wanting to be a human being. And she probably wanted, because you got her with the mic, like she a superstar singing and all this other stuff. I'm like, if you're a god, why would you want to do that? But she probably want to be a human so bad. She want the whole team to have that same mindset. And so I could just see it happening, man. That's the reason why they weren't a part of all of this stuff that took place with Endgame.
Right, Sprite is captured in a kid's body, but Sprite is, even though she's a later generation, Sprite is just as grown as Ajax. They're all grown adult people, but because they see, the thing about Eternals is what makes it, and one of the things that I love about them, every one of the characters have their purpose. If you don't have a purpose, you can't be an Eternal, because each one of them can do something different, right? So Sprite's ability, or her abilities, is also what keeps her youthful and what keeps her young. Because there's a lot of things about them. They're not like humans where they can just populate a planet. They only can be so many of them alive at one time. They can't just mass produce and have babies. There's a lot of stuff that they do that is almost like a godlike, thing. Heck, the Eternals set up a camp right outside Olympia and made a deal with the Olympians to act like that they was Olympian gods to human beings. And like they traded off, like the Eternals traded technology with the Olympians to make it seem like that they had powers like the Olympians. But that's a whole nother. I'm just telling you, the Eternals off the hook, man.
But when you think about it, even Plastos, the character that we see, the African American gentleman, the character that we see, he's the creator of technology.
Yeah, Plastos is.
You can see a lot of the things that he's creating. And I saw somewhere, I was thinking about this, that he's possibly the person who showed the Wakandans how to manipulate vibranium.
Could be.
And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. If you're looking at a person who living generations and generations, and like Big G said, he has a purpose, he has powers. These are his things. I mean, if you look at Selma Hayek's character, she's a person that is in charge of agriculture. And you can see how when she touches the ground, water starts running from her hands. So, this is they all have their purpose. Angelina Jolie, war. She's all about war. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's, and then of course Ajax the leader, right? So you got the superstar, and I forget his name. He's a movie star. Oh my gosh. Kamal, I think. Is that his name? He plays Kingo, I think, or something like that.
Kingo is his character name.
Yeah, so he's super fast. So he got the speed and he does his thing, So you're gonna see a lot with the Eternals. My point in bringing this up, you guys, is understand this Eternals movie, like Dame said, really gonna be like the Guardians of the Galaxy, gonna bring you in and introduce you to a lot of new characters, but at the same time, just like what G said, and he called it. I mean, listen, you can go back to one of our early Marvelous Talk podcasts. He was talking about this, the snaps, and being that all of these snaps happened, it woke them up out of the spell in which they were under. We don't know if it was Sprite spell, but something had them staying out of everything that was happening, right? And the snaps, because they're cosmic, are big enough, bold enough, and bad enough to bring them out of the retirement that they have been in, right? And so here's the thing. Last little tidbit. G had another conversation with us, and this was back in the day, and he was talking about us being in or watching an alternate dimension, and we don't know that we're actually watching an alternate dimension. Why he brought this up was the thing that came to his attention, and he brought it back to me, was Tony Stark. In Iron Man 2, Tony Stark is speaking with Banner. Iron Man 3. Yeah. He's speaking with Banner, and he said the initial hurt was when he was 14 and he had a nanny. Well, that year that he was talking about, he specifically said it. The year that, and it was 1983, if I'm thinking right. Correct. So it's 83. So it made him born in 69.
Right.
And then so we go back and we go to Endgame. And when we see Cap and Tony go back to the compound, to the SHIELD compound, and they're in there with Pym and his father. That was 1970.
Yeah. And Howard Stark said he said, how pregnant is she? And he was like, well, I don't know. She's here. She's somewhere. So how in 1970, you supposed to have been born in 1969 and 1970, you still ain't. I mean, come on, man, something's off. And
Kevin Feige wastes nothing. So he didn't do that on accident. This was not an oversight, right? So if we're living, and then you go to the Ancient One's explanation of the timeline, when you start thinking of that, all of the stones disappeared. And they didn't all disappear at the same time, because Tony was in the past getting that stone, right?
Right.
The other person was further back in the past getting the stone. Other person was in the future getting the stone. So they were all removed at different times.
So you probably what you're saying is that there could be another Tony Stark somewhere out there.
That's exactly what I'm
saying. For sure, there's one, man.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
I'm just breaking it down for the Marvelous Talk people.
Dang, this is the whole thing about this, man. I called this like 7-8 months ago. I'm talking about even when we first started our stuff. I mean, I'm telling you, I called it, but we're gonna see. We're gonna see.
And Dane, you're right. You're absolutely right, Dane. Thank you for making that assessment, because honestly, when it comes down to it, we're gonna get Tony back. We're gonna get Chris Evans back. Those things are gonna happen. Reason why I believe that we were watching this alternate universe is now when you go back and you press reset on this alternate universe, you're able to tell stories now with the Fantastic Four. You'll be able to tell stories with Namor. You'll be able to tell stories with, all of the other characters that we're introducing in Phase 4. It's a big reboot button. And how do you make money off of something that was already great? You reboot it. You put some more stuff in it. We've already seen that with the Justice League Snyder Cut.
It's even in the, let's think about the titles, man. I mean, like the big movies, like Multiverse of Madness, Quantum Mania. I mean, come on, man. They telling you already that there's a whole bunch going on, and there's a whole bunch of multiple different universes and all whatever else in everything you see. So you don't know if you're looking at the regular, what they call 199999 reality, which is the MCU, or are you looking at 616, which is the comic book? Are you looking at 818? I mean, what are you looking at? And it makes all the sense in the world, because the goal of what I believe, the goal of the MCU is to bring character content alive in person, to sell the product to every person that's out there. Every person that's out there, they want to be able to touch everything, So there's the titles is telling you what's happening. It's reboot, it's new, it's okay, let me reset. That's what they're doing. And it's gonna be off the hook.
Look at this, you guys. Here's a series that I really feel led at this point, right? This is what we're about to see. And if you look at this list of characters, Dane, just look at the list. Look at the list, Dane. See who you got there, right? You got Beast, you got Black Bolt, you got Black Panther, you got Captain America, you got Doctor Strange, you got Iron Man, you got Medusa, you got Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards, Namor, Professor X. Now, out of all of these characters, think about whose characters are the most beloved by people in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Professor X, Namor, Mr. Fantastic, Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Captain America, and Beast, right? So what better way to bring in this new phase in Phase 5 with these guys, the Illuminati?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Now you're able to bring in this whole other thing, and you have the Young Avengers going, and at the same time you have the Illuminati going. Man, y'all, hey, listen, if it's even half of what I'm thinking they're gonna do, I'm already with Sean. I'm gonna go get my water tank, and I'm gonna go get my air tank, you know what I'm saying, and a compression suit, and it's going down. I'm just, it is what it is. I'm gonna go ahead and trade my house. I'm gonna get me like a camper, so that way I can park the camper in the parking lot of the movies, so that I can just sit and wait, because it's going down. It literally is going down.
Yeah, what it does is it sets. This is not, this is a generational thing. They're selling product to our grandkids who are not even here on this planet yet. I mean, that's who they're selling product to. They're selling product to unborn people. So this gives them the ability to create storylines. Because like I said, they ran 3 phases, and I'm going to keep saying this all along. They ran 3 phases, 10 years, all of those movies, and they captured everybody. Now all of a sudden in phase 4, right? Because we've been told little bits and pieces about phase 5. Look at how much there's almost as much content in phase 4 than there was for the first three phases. This is on purpose because they're building worlds. And on top of that, we got Disney Plus shows. I mean, come on, man. I mean, we're not even talking about movies. I mean, we're like She-Hulk, Moon Knight. I mean, I'll run down the list of what the TV shows, man. They're building out whole worlds. Absolutely. And remember, unlike DC, everything in the MCU goes together like a jigsaw puzzle. Right? So this stuff is like, I'm just honored to be part of a show that breaks this stuff down for people that ain't really been into the comic books like I've been since a kid, and to show you guys how much we're going to go. And if you love entertainment and you love comics, man, you're in for a real treat, man. A real treat.
Yeah. Man. Well, 2 things before we go, guys. One, I have to say that Dame said this. Dame said this, man, right when we started Marvelous Talk. You know, they're not going to always go canon, but they will create a bridge over the water in order for you to get there. So to be enough canon for people to understand the character, but enough entertainment to where you leave the movies entertained.
Yes,
the second piece of it is, Dame, I want to ask you this question, and then we're leaving after we all answered this question. Let me ask you this. Who has been the most polarizing character in this phase that we're in right now that you've seen so far? Who's been the character that has you anxious to see more of him? And then two questions. You're anxious to see more of him, and then the second one, who's been the most entertaining for you?
So for me, the one that I want to see more of, definitely I have to say, is Captain America, because it took Falcon the whole series to get the confidence to don the mantle of being Captain America. Steve Rogers saw it in him before he saw it in himself, but he had to overcome all of these crazy things in society, even his own thinking. He had to overcome all that, and just when he took on that mantle, we saw how he was operating. This cat ain't got no superpowers. He don't have no abilities, but he got a heart. So that's what I want to see moving forward, is where they go with this character, because it's really interesting to me. I mean, to me, he's the closest thing to Batman that we have in Marvel. Like I said, he don't have no powers, but
none at all.
But the one that I'm really, the interesting one that I'm waiting to see what happens is Miss Maximoff. I want to see what's going to be, because we saw how we ended with her. So is that going to be good? Is it going to be bad? It's going to be a mixture of both. So both of the series have nailed it. But I mean, you had asked me this next week when Loki come out, and I might say Loki. So I don't know what I don't know what they're gonna do with him. But I'm really interested. I'm really interested in what Loki, because like we just was saying, it's a tie-in to something that's coming. So it's to be determined. But so far, that would be my answers that I give.
Great answers. Great answers. G, who's been the most interesting to you, entertaining, and who are you looking to see develop more?
The most interesting and entertaining character to date is Wanda Maximoff, without a shadow of a doubt. To see her go from Wanda Maximoff, the Avenger, to full-blown Scarlet Witch was just unbelievable, you know. And it's comic accurate, you know. That was like the whole tie-in. So I'm hyped about Wanda Maximoff, and I mean, to me, Phase 4, a lot of it is built around her, but that's another show. But the one I'm interested to see, that I want to see them build all the way out, is Monica Rambeau.
I knew you was gonna say
I want to see Spectrum, man.
Yeah.
It was sort of a tie between Vision. Now that I know part of the real Vision's conscious is inside of Vision, but Wanda Maximoff, man, I think how we were talking about who's going to be the tie-in, she could be the one. She could be the one that ties everybody together. Listen, she's so cold, they changed the name of the movie for the Captain Marvel 2. Now it's called the Marvels. So it's a whole bunch of them, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, Monica Rambeau is the one I want to see them really develop her character.
Yeah.
I really want to see that.
I think I have to agree with Dane. I definitely want to see, I want to see the blowout and the full arc of Sam as Captain America, not Falcon anymore. I think I would see that story. It was so well written, it was just. I mean, it's probably the better characters were inside. I mean, because even my most entertaining and interesting character was Zemo. He was the most entertaining character I've seen. Probably in the Marvel universe.
Yeah,
he was hilarious to me, and to see him on display that way, it really just worked. But I definitely want to see Sam's character developed and broadened out, and I want to see where we go with him from here. I mean, because you can't paint Sam in the corner, and then I mean, where do we go with where do we go with the Winter Soldier? Where do we go with Bucky? I mean, he's changed now. He's totally walked away from the Winter Soldier, and he's somebody else. So I really want to see what we do and how we develop that character. White Vision is there. I mean, I'm thinking, now that Vashon is gone, Vashon is gone. We want to see what White Vision got, So definitely there's a lot there, man. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in again to another episode of Marvelous Talk. Please, if you like what you're seeing, make sure you like and subscribe. Smash that like and subscribe button on YouTube. Make sure here on Facebook while we're streaming live. Thank you guys for being with us. And once again, till next week, we got, I'm excited because in 2 weeks, we got Loki coming. And then also right after that, we got Black Widow. Finally, I mean, gosh,
Hey, Mod, before we go, I have to do this, y'all. There's something I got to say. I got to give a shout out to the class of 2021 graduation. I like a lot of us have family members and stuff like that. I had a daughter that was my youngest baby. She graduated, man. And I'm just so elated at the fact of see how much the class of 2021 overcame to accomplish stuff that we took for granted, man.
Mm-hmm.
So, for how I do, 2 big thumbs up to the class of 2021.
Two big thumbs up and a Zemo scene. 2 big thumbs up and a Zemo scene. Definitely. Loop it. Hey, you guys, man. Till next week. Thank you for hanging out with us here on Marvelous Talk. It's your main man, Mod, Big G, and Dane. We are out.